welcome to Mums at the Table. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Shona.
Good to have you here, Shona.
Yeah, you too. How are things going?
Yeah, we're chugging along. You find a new routine and then you start to adapt that and you keep going, and I think that's what we all do.
Yeah.
But speaking of routines, coming up on today's show, we have got Fiona. She will be sitting down with our obstetrician, Dr. Wood.
Yes.
Who else
We've got Simone.
We do have Dr.
GP.
Simone. Yeah, that's right. And we've got Amanda, our dietitian, also having a chat with Gia.
If you have any questions and you want anything answered, just write into us on our Facebook page and we'll pass them along.
Yeah, that's right. You can add that to your list. Speaking of lists, do you feel like your life is a never-ending list and you've always got to be getting something done?
Honey-do list.
Do.
Honey-do list.
What? Explain that.
Honey, do this. Honey, do that. Honey, do this. Honey, do that.
So his list is just honey, please do this. I added
mine.
the please. Oh, you've got it good. But do you feel like there's just always something to do?
Yeah, I did when I had kids. I always felt like I was just running the whole time. It's not quite so bad now.
Yeah, okay.
But if I do feel that way, it's because I'm putting it upon myself.
I was about to say, is this because we've done it to ourselves?
Yes.
You know, do we say we have to do this and we actually don't?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but you were right about having kids, and especially when they're young, there's always so much to do. They need, Well, no, even before that, just their feeding, you know. Feed their kids, that sort of thing. But it is a never-ending list. So is it wrong that we have to schedule in time to have a break from that list if we got everything backwards?
I think we have. I think if nothing else, from the time that we're in at the moment, we should have learnt that busyness is not always the best thing. We've got to be able to sit and be quiet and listen for God's voice, for our mental voice,
So that list is probably just as long as we make it, isn't it? So
it is.
Yeah. Something to ponder.
Hey, I'm sitting with Dr. Simone. We're talking about eczema triggers, things that trigger off eczema. Well, I guess as a parent, we're looking to see what are the symptoms that our child might get for us to think, this might be eczema.
So eczema is typically associated with a rash that you tend to see in the creases of the body, so the elbows, the wrists, in chubby bubbers. We can see it in the neck, under the arms, behind the knees, ankles, those sorts of areas. In really red, raised, scaly, dry.
Okay.
Now, when we're talking about eczema, I guess, and the things that can be underlying eczema, it's important to look at the family.
Okay.
And if we know what the family history is, then that can give us a bit of a clue as to what may be going on.
So is it genetic?
There's definitely a genetic element to eczema. So eczema is genetically related to things like asthma, as well as hay fever and allergies and those sorts of things. So if someone in the family is an asthmatic, or someone in the family has allergies or hay fever, then that doesn't necessarily mean that the child will be asthmatic or have allergies, but they may show up as having eczema.
Okay, and how early can these signs come up?
So, but even newborn 2, 3, 4-week-old bubs can develop rashes that can be, is that an eczema type rash? And if there's a history of it in the family then that makes you a little bit more suspicious of looking out for that sort of thing.
What else?
A lot of other triggers can be things like exposure to dusts.
Okay.
So house dust, dust mites, those sorts of things. And so dust minimisation that's why they talk about dust covers and all those sorts of things as a prevention. Pollens and grasses, especially freshly cut grasses or certain strong pollens like wattle seed. Sometimes animal skin, so the family dog or the family cat can also trigger
And I guess you'll notice that if the child is playing with this animal, then all of a sudden they come
out in more of a rash. And one of the things that can also be related is certain foods. So some children, for instance, are sensitive to dairy, and that can cause them to have more of a prominent rash than they would otherwise have.
And it would outbreak on their skin.
And then you'd notice that if they reduced the amount of dairy that they had, then their rash would get better, those sorts of things. So being able to identify what is it for your child, and especially if there's that susceptibility, then what are the things that we can do to minimise their exposure to those potential triggers.
Great. And I think we've already talked about how we can treat eczema, so do keep it locked here at Mums at the Table for tips on like this and so much more.
baby-led weaning. I had never heard of that before today. Thank you to Amanda, who is going to open our minds up to all this new stuff. I am so excited to talk about this. I mother-led my children off their, led them into how to eat, but baby-led weaning is actually a thing, and Amanda's going to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to start with saying, I guess, all babies are different, so you're not necessarily going to use the same feeding method for each child. So, for example, with my 3 kids, my first, we just did puree foods. My second refused to be spoon-fed, so baby-led weaning with him. My third, we did a combination of both. So you're going to do different things with different babies. But baby-led weaning, this is where you start, when you start solids with your baby, you don't start with the purees as traditionally you might, but you start with soft finger foods. So I've got some examples here. So we've got some soft carrot sticks and broccoli, avocado on toast, banana, some fritters, pear, avocado, pasta. So these are some good ideas as to what you might want to start with. And you'll notice that they are in a chip sort of shape, or they have a handle that's easy
so the kids
to
can hold on
It's
to
got to
and
be
suck
easy
onto.
for them to hold. And it's all about the baby, or encouraging your baby to learn how to feed themselves.
Okay, from a baby. Okay, so what are the benefits of baby-led weaning?
Yeah, there's lots of benefits. So again, it gives them more control over what they eat, how much they eat. They're able to explore and have fun with food as well. It's also good for developing those fine and gross motor skills as well as hand-eye coordination.
Right.
And I guess from a preparation side of things, it's less prep work for you as a mum, because they can often eat family foods and quite a wide range of them earlier than if they were just eating purees as well.
So what are the cons, like the negative side of things?
So probably the biggest negative I found was it's really messy, so messy. So you're going
all over their face, and all over the
exactly,
table.
on the floor, everywhere. So you need a good bib, or maybe even a feeding smock might be better.
Something that catches the food.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing is, from a nutritional perspective, you don't really know how much they're eating because, like we're saying, it's everywhere. They spit it out, throw it on the floor. So it is hard to know how much they're actually getting in. The other side of things is that babies will often gag. And this can be a little bit scary. But just remember that choking is silent, whereas gagging is a safe and normal reflex for babies when the food goes in the back of their throat.
Okay.
But if your baby if they're gagging a lot, you might want to try something like this initially. So
we had that.
A baby mesh feeder. You might want to try that. Just make sure you're always there when your baby's eating, they're sitting upright, and don't give them foods that are a big choking hazard, like nuts, whole grapes, raw carrot, raw apple, that sort of thing.
So things that are soft and easy to mush. And so what, can you do soft foods like and do this as well together? So purees
and this, of course, absolutely. And I think that's actually the best way to do it, because they get the best of both worlds, really. They get to explore and have fun with foods, with the baby-led weaning, with the soft finger foods, but then with the purees, you know they're getting what they need nutritionally.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your tips. Guys, if you want any more tips like this, please go to our YouTube and subscribe, Mums at the Table, or mumsattetable.com, or follow us on Facebook. See you next time.
Hey, thanks for joining Dr. Wood and I for a chat. We're talking about when is a good time to be intimate with your partner after having a baby. Now, I know I'm taking this one for the team because we have a closed Mums at the Table Facebook group. So a lot of women were asking about this. So when is a good time to get intimate with your partner after having the baby?
After the baby. Okay, so I guess it depends. If you've had a caesarean section, you know, you need to wait till your abdominal muscles have all healed well.
Right. And when would that be?
Well, look, I would say normally about 6 weeks' time.
And that's usually when you've had your
postnatal check.
Yes.
There's no rules about this, you know, and it really depends on how you feel.
Right.
It's usually pretty impressive if people have had time to have intercourse at this stage. Because most of the time they're really tired because they're looking after a new baby. But if that's where you're at, that is a brilliant thing.
Okay.
When after you've had a vaginal birth, things are a bit different down there.
Okay.
You may have had some stitches, you may not have had any stitches. But either way, things are swollen and just need time to recover.
Yeah, how long?
And
6 weeks, 8 weeks?
I got to say,
again?
it's a variable time. If you have had some stitches, it would be good to wait at least 6 weeks for that to fully heal.
Maybe even a year.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
That's a good form of contraception as well. But and so you go and see your obstetrician for your 6-week checkup, and they usually, check you to
They'll
make
be
sure
able to tell you what.
But there's a couple other things I want to talk about this particular thing, and that
Right.
when you're breastfeeding, your natural levels of lubrication in your vagina are going to be reduced.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because
I still felt pregnant.
Yeah, it can happen.
I was breastfeeding right up until, so it wasn't a very good form of contraception because I heard
about 3% of people can fall pregnant when they're breastfeeding.
Right.
Some
that
people are very
3%.
blessed. That's right. But your natural levels of lubrication are going to be significantly reduced. And so for that reason, it's a good idea to use extra lubrication if you're still breastfeeding, and particularly if you've had some tear or some repair work done after the birth. So those are important things to use. And when you're talking about contraception, if you're using condoms, then you need to use a water-based lubricant. But if you're using, say, other forms of contraception, hormonal contraception, then you could use an oil-based. And one of the things that I find my patients find very popular is to use coconut oil, which you can buy at the supermarket from the cooking section.
Right.
Very healthy for your skin.
So if you've got time for this, go get some coconut oil and get lubricated and whatever the situation might be.
Whatever you need.
I think what I'm hearing from you is to get checked from your doctor prior to engaging in...
But I think it's an individual thing. I mean, some people will be ready to do it earlier, but it's really... There's a lot of emotions involved with returning to intercourse, and... You might be tired, you might be looking after a child, and so that might have been on your radar for quite some time.
I heard you could be more susceptible to getting pregnant easier once you've had a baby if you do.
I don't think there's any evidence about that. Okay. I think it's more to do with, you know what your body's going to go through again. Right. So there's that sort of aspect of things. But I don't think there's any evidence that you're likely to fall pregnant easier next time. It could be for some people, but...
Thank you so much, Dr. Wood, for those tips. I hope that's helped you, ladies. Keep it locked right here for more of this information and so much more. Mums at the table.
So how do you develop confidence as a mum? Particularly as a new mum, you bring your baby home. You've seen other people do it, but you've never done it yourself. How do you develop that confidence? Some people are natural mums and they come home, they know what they're doing, they go.
They go. They might be portraying that like I did. I think I was really good at sort of putting out that front that I was confident, I was doing okay, everything was, within my scope of being able to handle it. But, deep down inside, I was not quite so
questioning
confident.
yourself.
Especially in the early days, questioning myself as a mum. Was I doing things right? I had to run a lot on gut. So
was it just time that built up your confidence?
I think so. I think also just allowing myself to make the mistakes and learning from them. Yeah.
Absolutely agree with that.
How about you? Your child now, your eldest is 10.
Yep.
Do you feel like you're a confident mum?
Definitely more than when I first started out. Atrociously insecure mum, didn't know what I was doing, and I think people sensed that and took over. Ooh. And that put me in a position where I decided to say, do you know what? I have to cut you out of my life emotionally and in some cases physically, just so I had the time to regroup and say, do you know what? Let me think through this, because I overthink stuff. I process stuff. But I had to say, if someone takes over, then I'm not going to build that confidence. I'm going to question myself. So for me, it was really important to create a space where I had time and security to do that.
So in saying no, did you feel like you felt confident in doing that?
No, I felt guilty because, I'm a people pleaser. But it came to a point where I realised, hang on, my priority is not your happiness. I didn't have children to make you happy. Yeah. This is our family. This is our unit. We start here with this onion layer. And then when we've got some confidence, we'll include you back in type thing. It sounds really harsh. I don't mean for it to. But that's how I chose to handle it with who I am, I guess. But there are lots of different things that people do to build that confidence up. And, practice. Going out with your baby for the first time is unnerving as well, isn't it?
Yes, really unnerving.
Yeah, but it has to be a choice to surround yourself with the right people, the right
people who build you up rather
than
push you down, and people who support you.
I think. But that is all we've got time for today. We hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time. Bye.